This is the Money Radio Network.
Welcome to Fast Turtle Digital Marketing Pros. Tune in to learn the latest tips about Google search, social media disruption, paid media, and how to transform your business with ROI-driven digital solutions. Now, here are your hosts, Eric Olson and Graham Ware.
Hey, everybody. This is Graham Ware coming to you live from Scottsdale, Arizona. Eric is actually not with us. Instead, we kicked him out, and I have the pleasure of having two amazing people on our team with us. We have Amanda Sett, our creative director. Amanda, how you doing?
Good. Thank you, Graham.
Hey, good to have you. And then we have Fernando Diaz. He is one of our killer senior creative designers in-house. How you doing, Fernando?
Doing well, too.
Awesome. Good stuff, guys. So, traditionally, for our listeners, we've always talked a lot about digital, a lot about search engine. We've talked a lot about social. Just last week, we talked about social media. Today we have a great guest. His name is Oli Gardner. He'll be joining us. He is from Unbounce, which is a very good platform for user experience and landing pages. So we're going to be really excited, or we are really excited to have him on. Before he comes on, we just want to talk a little bit about websites. A lot of businesses out there, they don't really quite understand, I think, what goes into a website. Traditionally, I've seen, and maybe you guys can attest to this, websites that, people build and then they kind of go stagnant. So, Amanda, looking at your experience and what you've seen, what are some of the, most important elements, a business owner should take into consideration when building a website?
Probably the biggest thing is making sure they have a good sense of focus. One of the things that Fernando and I see all the time is trying to do too many things, trying to have all these different calls to action, maybe trying to promote many different products, and it can really fall flat. So that's probably the hardest thing is just getting that initial kind of focus down right. And once you know that, what your goal is, and then build out from there.
Yeah, awesome. Very true. Fernando, in your experience, you are an awesome creative guy. What are some of the challenges, that you commonly see, as it relates to a business owner, whether it's, business owners might have an idea of like, hey, I want these colors, I want this kind of schematic or like this look. Is that always the right feel from a user perspective? They kind of lose sight of like the end user. What do you kind of see in that respect?
Well, I see a lot of problems with their, like you said, like the scheme colors and stuff like that. I prefer to stay within the colors of their logo and their brand and build out of that.
Nice. Very good. So just being more brand focused. UX is obviously a huge thing. I know, Amanda, you were talking a little bit earlier about this thing called ADI. What is that?
Oh, I think it might be replacing designers. I don't know. We should talk about this on the radio. What it is loosely speaking, is artificial design intelligence. And I think the goal of it is that it aims to kind of intelligently account for some common design problems that we do. So, certain things like having a form on this side or that side, or, maybe having a certain layout that we know can tailor people through a specific funnel, things like that. There's lots of tools out there that are kind of trying to accomplish this, where it's trying to kind of automate some steps of the process and kind of basically take, content and generate either a layout or a function out of that and take it from there. So it's kind of a cool thing. That's sort of up and coming, I think. It might be the future. It might very well be.
It's crazy how, so we talk a lot about on this segment, machine learning, artificial intelligence as it relates to personal assisted technology. This is kind of a component for that, as it relates to building a website, which to me it's crazy. It's not even mind-boggling. That kind of has a negative connotation to it. It's really cool, actually. It's kind of exciting. Fernando, kind of, tell me a little bit about, when you're looking at designing a website, and all the key elements, what are some of the best practices? We hear all the time, a small business owner might say, hey, I can go get like a Weebly or Wix, or, there's several different kind of freebie, or not even freebie, but they're really cheap kind of low-end sites that they can try to build themselves. What are some of the disadvantages or some of the things that might put them in a challenging kind of position if they go that route versus going with like a custom agency type route?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that like they're not getting anything original. It's just a template. They're not gonna be anything in particular different from others. They're gonna keep getting the same thing over and over again. For us, building a site is getting from scratch, building it out of like their content, their gold, and it's like a totally different website that they're getting, something original, something that's gonna be just for them.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, absolutely. Having something that they can control and that's custom to them, that's a huge point, and that's a very valid point. I've played around in Weebly and the Wixes, and you're right. They are very. I think it's really easy for like a business owner who's just starting, just to kind of learn from. But like, do you have any preferred CMS? And when we say CMS, listeners, we're talking content management systems or systems on the back end that basically your website is built on. Do you have any that you prefer?
Definitely, Spacecraft. I think is one of our best. I think it's easy to use.
Spacecraft?
Yeah.
Nice. Very cool. All right. Amanda, you?
Yeah, actually, I think to Fernando's earlier point, the artificial design intelligence is very much another kind of tool in our toolkit where it's a great way to simplify certain parts of the process and then allow for that customization really as that other layer on top of it. That's definitely where we see things going, like personalization and customization. That's really the wave of the future where getting some of the core stuff taken care of and then really refining the product from there. So, yeah, I know we also use WordPress a lot, and that's something that's really extensible. It fits great with that where it is. It's very extendable. You can start with a real simple framework, that gets all the basic needs, and then you can expand it into a full-fledged, web application, which we've got some of our clients on. So that, I think, is very much a great flexible tool that we recommend.
Very cool. Yeah, I like WordPress. I do like Spacecraft as well. Definitely, it really depends kind of on the user's needs. E-commerce, obviously you guys are familiar with e-commerce platforms. Sometimes those get a little muddy or hairy at times, but having an important website or a user-friendly website is very vital and important to a business owner, even from a conversion standpoint. What would you guys say are kind of the minimum things a business owner can do in terms of being able to put call to actions or CTAs on a site? What do those kind of look like? Amanda, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
I mean, believe it or not, maybe Oli will speak to this too, is you'd be surprised how many websites don't have one at all. A lot of times as a business owner, being very close to the product or to the service, you have a very intimate understanding of how it needs to work and why people should use it. But then making sure that's clear to your end customer can be the challenge sometimes. So yeah, it's really just that is having one, having it be clear, whether it's providing that value that gets people to want to either click or pick up the phone or something like that.
Very cool. Yeah, definitely call to actions are key. I know, Fernando, you build them into the sites that you design as well, working with Amanda. So we have Oli Gardner, who will be joining us here shortly, right after this segment. Hopefully stay tuned. He is a thought leader in the industry, and we will look forward to speaking with all you guys soon. See you after the break.
You're listening to The Digital Pros, powered by Fast Turtle. Get your free digital assessment today. FastTurtle.com. We'll be back after this short commercial break. Now back to Fast Turtle's Digital Pros with your digital wizards, Eric and Graham.
Well, welcome everybody. So this is Graham Ware here. We have Amanda Sett, our creative director, in the house with Fernando Diaz, one of our senior creative people with our web design team as well. And we are really excited today. We have a great show. We have the co-founder of Unbounce, Oli Gardner, on the show who's joining us. Oli, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Graham. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure to have you, and it's a real testament to your character. We know you're a really busy guy, and for our listeners out there, Oli really is kind of like the god of UX design, and we'll definitely get into what he's done. He's been around forever. He is obsessed with identifying and reversing bad marketing practices, and he really doesn't bullshit. I love him. I've actually seen him speak at the Inbounce Summit. We met at the Digital Summit in Phoenix. He's spoken at SMX. He's coming up to MozCon. We have Rand Fishkin on our show next week, so Oli will actually be there. He can be basically found anywhere. At any marketing conference you go to, Oli's going to be there because he is a thought leader in the industry. So, again, Oli, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I'm not sure about the been around forever. That makes me sound like a vampire or somebody really old.
Yeah, definitely not an old guy by any means. Not trying to assert that, absolutely. But definitely, like I said, he's a guy. He shoots you straight, and so I guess with that, can you kind of help us understand, like, how did you get into this industry? Where did you discover your passion for landing pages and bad marketing practices, that kind of thing?
I was kind of forced into it, I guess. I mean, we started Unbounce 7.5 years ago, and there was 6 co-founders, which is kind of weird, but awesome. And we had a great mix of technical and creative, lots of crossover. And, so the UX side, the conversion side, that was always kind of where I was going to go, but I'd never been a marketer before. So that was kind of day one. I'm like, okay, I'll do our marketing. So that's kind of where that began. But I've always been annoyed at bad experiences. It's always kind of been something that pissed me off. So it was a natural transition from, I used to run a usability team and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so getting into the marketing side of it. And it's kind of awesome because there's so much bad marketing out there, which is a good thing for me, because if all marketing was really good, I wouldn't really have anything to talk about.
No, that's so true. And for our listeners, definitely check out Oli. His Twitter handle is at Oli Gardner, OLIGARDNER. And then also his website is Unbounce, just like it sounds, UNBOUNCE.com. It's an awesome site, awesome service, actually, for any of our listeners that are looking to, create an actual landing page that has conversion-based stuff. Having said that, is there any, Unbounce sounds really kind of obvious, in terms of the naming convention. Now, you talk about 6 co-founders. I can't even imagine what it took. Did you guys, all have different ideas? And how long did that conversation take place to arrive at naming it Unbounce?
So idea-wise, our CEO, Rick Perot, he had 2 ideas. And a group of us back in 2009, we all kind of hung out for the summer. Different people came and went, and we discussed these ideas. And we collectively, about 10, 12 of us, kind of said, okay, this idea is good, this idea is terrible, and let's move forward. And then it just, people come and go, that people can't commit to doing something like this. And it whittled down to 6. And it's, people we've worked together on and off for 15 years, so we knew each other really well, differing levels between us. But so it was actually quite easy, and we've not really had a serious argument since it started. So I don't know. And the name, that was me. I obsess over branding, and Rick had a placeholder domain he'd bought, which was easylanding.com, like easylanding.ez if you're Canadian, and easy for the U.S., which is just terrible. And there was absolutely no way I was going to let that go, so I obsessed over trying to find a name that was relevant but also different. So yeah, I came up with a name.
Awesome stuff. Well, and we congratulate you on, I don't know how recent it is, but we know that you're obviously engaged to Nicole, who does a bunch of SEO and digital marketing as well. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was last August we got engaged in a castle in Scotland.
Very cool.
Which is where I'm from originally, kind of. So yeah, that was kind of cool.
Oh, so you're not from New York. That accent is not New York.
I've never had that before. Yeah, my accent is like some weird mashup of Scotland, London, and Vancouver.
Very cool. Well, I'm gonna turn it over here to Amanda Fernando, because they're looking at me like they're itching to talk to you. Amanda actually had the pleasure of seeing you speak at the Phoenix Digital Summit. So
right.
I'm gonna turn it over to her. I know she has some cool questions to ask for you, and Amanda, take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the biggest thing when you're saying kind of pointing out some of these bad marketing that's out there, what are kind of the most common either misconceptions or mistakes that people see, that you see on landing pages or websites in general?
There's a couple of really fundamental things. The first thing, and it's the thing that annoys me the most, is when people send ad traffic to their homepage. Because ads are specific, your homepage is generic, and especially if you have more than one product or service, you're watering down your message. There's too many distractions, things to do. So that's the kind of the fundamental one, and then which is really simple. Just have a dedicated landing page with nothing to do apart from the one thing that you're actually advertising, and then it comes down to the clarity of what you're communicating, what you do. Most companies, they don't know how to write, or they don't know how to communicate what is special about themselves. And it's actually quite difficult, but and if you pay attention to your customers and listen to them and interview them, you can get a much better sense of who you are and how you should describe it, so that someone understands why you're unique. But that's one of the bigger problems. If you search for someone, like a company that's in an industry you're interested in, software or something that you want, and then look at the competition, you'll find more often than not that everybody says the exact same thing, and that's a big problem in marketing. People who don't know how to communicate that they're unique, even if they are.
Gotcha. So if you don't mind, I'm going to hop in here, because one of the things I think, if I remember right, you talk about I think, is it the 30-second rule? Can you kind of expand on that?
It's probably the 5-second test.
That's what it is, 5 seconds. Yeah.
Which is just a great way of figuring out if you have a clarity problem. It's a very simple concept where you show someone a screenshot for 5 seconds, then you take it down and you ask them a question. And they have to answer the question based on their recollection of the page they just saw, the screenshot. You can do this using usabilityhub.com from a software perspective, or you can just have a piece of paper, show to people, or open and close your laptop. And it's a fascinating way of seeing what people actually paid attention to and what they were able to read in that tiny little portion of time. Again, quite often you'll get some hilarious, well, not hilarious if it's your own company and people don't know what you do, but as someone who looks at other people's marketing, I find it hilarious to see how poorly people communicate. Yeah, and it's a great way of figuring that out.
It totally is, and it's funny. I'm sure Fernando can attest to, and Amanda too. Sites that we've seen where it's overkill. It's almost like too many logos, too many things, and then you look at it and you're like, what are you trying to achieve here? And you just kind of get lost in translation, and it's almost like you want to take some Advil or Vicodin afterwards because you're so
or you just take a big dose of the back button.
Yeah, a big dose of the back button and a bounce. Exactly. Fernando, do you have anything for Oli you'd like to share or ask?
Yes, I actually have one question to ask you. What are the main factors to get people to click on your website?
Sorry, could you just repeat that? What are the
main factors to get people to click on a website?
Factors. Well, it depends what your conversion goal is, really. What do you want them to click on? Because then it comes down to your visual hierarchy. How do you actually present the thing that's most important that you want people to click? But it's also got to be interesting. You can't just expect someone to be clicking on your call to action because you have one. Some of it comes down to copywriting, the things you write on your button. That can have an influence, not always, but it can definitely help. I mean, if it's on a form, it can have an impact. If it's just a standard click-through, like say on your homepage where you have a button, say, that takes you to the pricing page or something, that can be really important, the language there that communicates, because that's one of the simple above-the-fold mechanisms that allows you to communicate what it is you do and get someone to move, further along in your conversion path. But it really comes down to understanding the motivation of the people who are arriving and speaking to the people who are your ideal customer, not actually, designing for the generic anybody, because if you're trying to create an experience that gets as many people in the door as possible, you're doing it wrong, because you don't want the wrong customer, because that impacts your, all your metrics. Yeah. Just because you have a lot of people coming in, all of a sudden, your churn can be super high because the wrong people come in. That means a lot of people leave again as well once they've signed up. So that actually makes you look like a weaker company. So it's important to actually speak in the language and for the relevance of the people who are, for us, our target is agencies and in-house marketing teams. So if we were just speaking to, build a web page and get it up today, Yeah, we wouldn't be getting professional marketers. We'd just be getting anyone who wants to put a web page up, and they would leave because it's not designed for them, and that would make all of our metrics look terrible.
Very cool. Well, awesome question, Fernando. Great response, Oli, as always. We have Oli Gardner in the house. We are going to take a short commercial break, and we will be right back. Thank you so much, and stay tuned.
You're listening to The Digital Pros, powered by Fast Turtle. Get your free digital assessment today. FastTurtle.com. We'll be back after this short commercial break. Now back to Fast Turtle's Digital Pros with your digital wizards, Eric and Graham.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We have the pleasure of having Oli Gardner in the house. He is from Unbounce. He's one of the co-founders. He has been around, I don't want to say too long because that makes him sound like a vampire, but I will say that he's been around well enough to be an expert and a thought leader in the industry. We were just talking about, clicks and web design. I know, Amanda, one thing that, is going around, a lot of people are talking about, A/B testing and ADI and things like that. So I know you wanted to kind of have a little conversation with him on that.
Yeah, I think, Oli, what you said is about, as far as understanding your audience is huge. Part of that too, how do you know what to test when you are trying to reach that audience? How can you determine those factors? How as a business owner, where do they start?
You have to start with research. The biggest failing with A/B testing as a concept is that it sounds exciting. You're going to improve the conversion rate of everything you do. That's a bit of a fallacy because it's actually really difficult. And if you just jump into it, which everybody does, and you go, let's test a headline, let's test the button color, let's test the button copy, all of this kind of stuff, you're destined to fail because you're not doing it based on evidence. And if you do the research where that can be just looking at Google Analytics for some signals, it can be looking at a scroll map. Do people scroll as far as where your CTA is at the bottom of the page, say a blog post or something? Or, what items of the navigation are they clicking on? Talk to customers. What did they find frustrating about signing up? Why do they actually love you? All of that stuff can inform a hypothesis, which can inform a well-formulated test, so that if it wins, awesome, it was based on something real. If it loses, you kind of understand why. But if you just do random testing, if it wins, you're kind of lost because you won't really know what the reason it won was, other than more people did it. So that's kind of valueless if you go down that path. And also, a big mistake is whenever you run an A/B test, if you look at the stats, they've got a graph of the performance of an A/B test. Almost every single one has a big spike at the beginning. That's because you have a low sample size at that point. So it's a dramatic increase or decrease. That's when people freak out and go, yeah, we're amazing, or we suck, and they stop the test and they either move something into being the winner, or they don't. But the truth is that's way too early. You have to use a sample size calculator to figure out how long your test should be, typically 3 weeks or more, unless you have a super high traffic site, before you get a valid test. So there's a lot of discipline required with testing, and it all begins with research. You actually are testing based on an observed pain.
That's a really interesting point. So have you ever seen cases then where, they've had maybe a particular business or client has done an A/B test, and they saw the sample size in the beginning because it was a low sample size, they saw that spike, and then they just ran with it, and that then in turn impacted negatively on their marketing efforts with respect to the landing page?
It happens all the time, and it's the responsibility of us as speakers or marketers or tool providers that we educate people on how to do it right, because it's a massive problem. And we all made this mistake when we started. I know I did. We ran a test. I ran a test on our pricing page years ago. I wanted to put this little table highlighting why we were different to our competitors. And I put it below the pricing grid. And after the test ran, and I probably didn't run it long enough, it was about a week, and there was no impact. So it just kind of flatlined. It didn't win, it didn't lose. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I may as well leave this extra content in because it didn't lose. because I thought, this is good content. Then 6 weeks later, our numbers tank, and we're like, oh, what happened? And because I wasn't a disciplined tester at that point, I didn't put an annotation in Google Analytics. There was no real, flag saying started here, what I did. And it took us over a week to figure out that basically when I put this block of content in, it pushed the free sign up. So you got the pricing grid for the paid trials. And then there's a small link to get a free account if you're not ready to put your credit card in. That had been pushed down like 255 pixels. And it meant hardly anyone was seeing it, even with that small difference. So there were no free accounts that could then upgrade into paid accounts. And it took us like 2 months after that to recover, kind of once we reset it in terms of our numbers. So, there's many, many lessons in there, not actually recording what you're doing properly and stopping it too early, not digging deep enough, because if we dug deeper into the metrics, instead of just the surface level conversion, if we'd gone deeper down, we would have seen, okay, NTS, that's how new trial starts, is the same. Free sign-ups way down. Oh, okay. And we could have figured it out really quickly. But we just looked at the top-level metric and thought, oh, this is fine, nothing broke, so.
Interesting.
Hey, it's me, Fernando. You mentioned tools that you use. Can you mention some of your favorite tools?
Obviously, Unbounce for landing pages and overlays. In terms of other tools, Hotjar's great. Use that a lot for scroll maps and click maps. I'm doing a lot of research right now on the impact of things like sticky navigation on scroll depth, and some other things I'm testing, like conversational forms, which are really new design trends. So using heat maps for that kind of thing is really interesting. And you have user session recordings as well, so you can actually watch people and having this painful experience or a great experience. Then for testing, Unbounce if it's testing a landing page, VWO and Optimizely, or for A/B testing your website. Usability Hub, great for those 5-second clarity tests. I mean, there's a ton out there. We find, though, that often to be consistent with everything we're doing, we really pay more attention at the Google Analytics and KISS metrics, kind of a deeper level down. We don't, we look at the measurements in the tools we're using, but we tend to dig deeper and look at our KPIs measured from a single place, like down in Google Analytics. So that's kind of how we do it.
Very cool. So with the heat maps and the user session, recordings, is that something that Unbounce actually provides as well as part of the service?
It's not currently anyway. We are building out, our platform. So overlays was the most recent thing we launched, and we're going to put a bunch more tools in our kind of arsenal as we go, but we don't have that right now. Hotjar is great for that because they have a whole bunch of the different things there. But the session recordings are fascinating because, like I said, we're testing this conversational form, which is basically there's this little script that appeared on GitHub that takes a form and it turns it into something that looks like live chat. So it's kind of like a little chat bot-y, or, and it's really interesting. It's a different interaction model, and it seems kind of cool. But, design trends are dangerous because they just come along, and they're not usually validated from like a conversion standpoint. So that's what I'm trying to do to see whether this is actually a good, new interaction model. And watching session recordings is fascinating. As soon as I put it up, I watched the first recording, and it was a train wreck. It was so bad because what I've realized is it's too early in its development. It doesn't do error handling, and there were a bunch of problems. So I saw this guy having a terrible experience, and I felt so bad. I'm like, oh no! And he was there for like 2 minutes. He refreshed the page. He kept trying to go through this, but he couldn't actually succeed. So I felt really guilty. But then Nicole, my fiance, she was like, but he put his email address in. You should reach out, which was brilliant. I didn't think about it. So I emailed him, and I said, hey, I'm really sorry about that experience you just had. And this was like 5 minutes after he had it. I'm testing something, and I saw from a recording it was a terrible experience. My apologies. Here's the link to the content you were trying to get. Again, sorry about the bad experience. And he responded right away saying that in 25 years as a pro, that is the best the single best experience of someone owning up to a bad experience that he's ever, and he said, I'm much more likely to engage with Unbounce as a brand in the future. So the benefit of things like that, to help see problems and make them better, but also just to be connecting with people, it can really help you be better, in a pretty rapid way.
And of course, you got to give your fiance credit to that too. So I'm sure she asked you to take her to a nice dinner. I call her out in most of my presentations when I speak, either just to embarrass her or to basically point out that she makes all the smart decisions. Very, very cool. Well, I think we're heading into a break here, Oli. So I definitely appreciate your time, and we will be right back after these minutes.
Sounds good.
You're listening to The Digital Pros, powered by Fast Turtle. Get your free digital assessment today. FastTurtle.com. We'll be back after this short commercial break. Now back to Fast Turtle's Digital Pros with your digital wizards, Eric and Graham.
And we are back with Oli Gardner in the house. Thank you, Oli. I know Amanda's itching to ask you something that she's been wanting to ask you, so I'm going to turn it over to her immediately. She's like, "You're hogging the mic." I'm like, "All right."
No, it's great getting a chance to talk and really the true digital wizard. We kind of left off talking a little bit about KPIs and diving deep into Google Analytics to really get true data and good information, actionable information. How do you suggest, or how does your process look like for UX teams connecting the design side, the conversion centered side, to that end result, to that business goal? So all of our working with business owners are very considerate of ROI, making sure that these changes they are making, not only do they impact their bottom line, but they make sense. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, lots of levels to that. One of the important things is, you'll have multiple levels of KPIs. I'll just talk about ours because it's simpler for me. So we'll have people who start a paid trial. Then we consider them a customer once they've paid us twice, not just once, because we want them to get through it 2 times. And then we track, and it takes a while to get this, and it's quite hard, but you need to figure out your lifetime value, because that's the ultimate measurement of who your customers really are. And that's when some of those mistakes I talked about before, or when we have lower prices on our plans, you can track that cohort, and you look at lifetime value and go, oh, wow, these customers are worth 4 times these customers. Why is that? And you can dig into that. Oh, you're on that pricing plan. Well, who are they? And you find out, well, they're not actually professional marketers. That's why. Okay, so they're not happy here. Or we figured out recently that people who do a certain type of activity, I won't mention what it is, but they're worth a lot more to us. So you have to do a lot of exploration, and starting with that lifetime value calculation, however you can get that, it's not always easy. That's the best place to really validate what your success is. But for a team trying to actually create experiences and designs that influence that, you have to be able to track it. But then it comes down to how do you take that data that you might have access to in multiple different places, whether it's the research side, you're looking at these interviews or heat maps or anything like that, and then the actual data in GA. How do you, connect that information to the experience you're creating? And that's really hard. That's what I'm working on right now. And my new talk on a book I'm probably going to write is called Data-Driven Design. The goal there is to try and help marketing teams and designers create experiences that are impactful based on data. So, for instance, there'll be a data library in this thing where you could look at, what am I working on as a designer? Am I working on an element of a page? Am I working on a certain type of page? Do I have a design problem I'm trying to solve? Or am I am I being forced into use a design trend? So let's say you have a client or a boss who's saying, we need to use one of these, a promo slider, or we need parallax, or we need background videos, whatever it is, the latest design trend, a conversational forum. The idea behind this, I'm kind of making a tool for it as well, is that you choose your way in. So say you choose design trend, and then you pick promo slider. It would then break it down for you, saying, well, for that type of thing, you need to look at these 3 metrics. So maybe it's like a click map for which items, navigation items on the slider are they clicking on, like a bunch of different things, and then how you get that data and how you can use it, and some tests that validate these concepts. So instead of someone going, oh, there's data everywhere, it's what am I working on, what data is relevant to that problem, basically to try and simplify designers and marketers access to the right type of data that can actually help what they're doing instead of being overwhelming, because data is overwhelming for the majority of people. So that's kind of a mission I'm on right now, because I've done a bunch of research about marketing teams and the problems in that, and the problems between designers, copywriters, and marketers, whoever's leading the team. And it's kind of crazy, because designers get frustrated by marketers or their team leads or the client or what have you, because there's so much subjectivity, and often they have to start their design work before they have the copy. They don't have any access to data when they do it, so they're kind of shooting in the dark. They're relying on trends or copying a competitor or just going with their gut to create some kind of templated page while they wait for the copy, and that's frustrating, because then they're painting by numbers, and then the copywriter is frustrated too, because they're like, oh, well, my headline doesn't fit in your design. And like, well, change your headline. Well, I can't. That's my message, And it goes back and forth. And then ultimately the marketer or team lead is making a call to solve this problem, and they're not doing it. They're critiquing design when they have no skill in critiquing design. So there's a lot of battles that go on in that team structure that I kind of want to solve through this data-driven design methodology.
Wow, that sounds awesome. That's very much, I think, if not the way we should be doing things now, the way of the future, for sure, using that to inform our designs. What other kind of things do you foresee, like the future of UX in the maybe next 3 years, let's say?
Well, I think the future of, just performance-based websites and marketing, it's conversion automation is what we're calling our stab at that, but it's machine learning, really. And we actually put a blog post out today or yesterday about the kind of classic fear of like, well, what's this going to do? Is it going to make things better, or is it going to take away our jobs? Because that's a fear people have, based on history and the Industrial Revolution and all that kind of thing, or the information age. So it's a legitimate fear, but it's a little bit unfounded, because what it's going to do, at least in its infancy, in its first kind of in the next few years, is it's just going to accelerate our access to information. So as a marketer or designer, if you're doing some research, instead of spending weeks or months doing that, machine learning, conversion automation, will be able to make suggestions to you really quickly after doing a lot of analysis that you won't actually have to do. So we can most likely spend more time being creative, thinking, working on problem solving, because the insights will be coming at us more rapidly. Imagine you put up this example is based on something we did manually. We looked at some of our blog posts. I'm like, well, how many people are actually clicking on the call to action that was at the bottom of the blog post? We looked at and this is an example, too, of this data-driven design library thing I'm making. So it'd be like, oh, I'm working on a blog post. Okay, what should I look at? You should look at the scroll depth and where your CTA is. So looking at a scroll map, we saw only 6% of people are getting all the way down to where our call to action is, the bottom of the blog post. That's terrible. But then we looked at the kind of hotspot as where people scroll to. We moved it up to about the fourth paragraph or something and increased the click-through rate by 180%, because it was in a place people were actually getting to. So that kind of insight will happen automatically in the future, where it will do this analysis for you and say, hey, if you do this, it will have this impact. Would you like either just here's the information, go do it yourself, or in a more advanced system, would you like me to do it for you, yes or no? So it's not like the machines are going to be controlling everything and making all these changes. It'll just accelerate our access to information.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I know. We did read that blog that I think Amy on your team wrote. So, yeah, very interesting stuff with respect to the AI and what its impact will be, not only from the web design aspect, but even in the SEO aspect. I know Rand put out, ironically, his Whiteboard Wednesday, was about, it was about the pop-ups, overlays, models, interstitials, and all that, and how those impact from a design aspect the SEO aspect of a site. Right. Is there any case you're willing to share where you went in and you just saw like a nightmare of a client where they had like pop-up after pop-up after pop-up, and what did that look like, or how did you handle that?
No, not really, because, we don't have clients per se. We have customers. The difference being, we're not an agency, so we have, instead of having like an agency might have 20 clients, we have 14,000 customers. So I don't, see them kind of on that one-to-one basis. I'm sure some of them are doing that. But that's kind of a bit of our mission too. Like I said, we just launched overlays. So in our mind, my mind, pop-ups were this evil thing that has existed since, 10 years ago, when people were trying to control browser behavior, trying to hack, how things worked. But if you imagine that, instead of it being like some hack that someone's trying to control things, what if it was just an interactive device that was always part of a browser? It was just its natural behavior. That's one of the things that can happen. That's kind of where we want to get to, that it's a responsible use of technology. It's done at the right time for the right reason, so that it's actually helpful for people. So it's coming up with like, oh, well, actually, yeah, I really do want that. And it's not the psychological manipulation of the, yes, I kill kittens in my spare time. You have to click that link just to close the thing. That kind of good cop, bad cop, or confirmed shaming, someone's calling it now. Yeah. That's poor behavior. But it's not the technology's fault, it's our fault.
Yeah,
so we have to make sure that, so we're trying to take a stance. Part of that is the rebranding. We're calling it something different, and it's already gaining some traction. Because I want to associate pop-ups with a negative experience.
Yes.
And overlays with a positive one, because we're seeing great results. We just did a test where we took, actually, it was one of our clients. Customers, I'm mixing myself up here. They took the exact same overlay with the same offer. They put it on, I forget what it was for, but they put it on, it was connected to a product. It wasn't content related, it was product related. They put it on 4 of their websites and then 4 of their blogs. The click-through rate on them, on the blog, was like 0.012 or something, or 0.12, less than 1% or something. It was between 10 and 15% on when they put it on in the right place, different parts of their website. So it's a massively dramatic impact when you do it the right way. So the more we can teach people which type of one you should use where, whether it's exit or entrance or scroll or timed or clicked, whatever it is, we're trying to discover what the actual best ways of doing that, the different interaction models that work really well, so that we're not pissing people off by doing this, and we can actually see a change in the experience, kind of, from 2016 forward. I want all this stuff to be better.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we look at it.
Very awesome. Well, Oli, thank you so much for your time. Fernando, Amanda in the house, thank you so much for your time. Oli, continue to do your great things. Hopefully we'll see you at MozCon, and thank you for joining us and for all that you do. I really appreciate it. We all appreciate it, and we wish you nothing but the best.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Take care.
You've been listening to Fast Turtle's Digital Pros. Discover how SEO, PPC, and social media can grow your business today. Call 888-468-8785. That's 888-468-8785. Not sure if you need help? Get your free digital assessment now at fastturtle.com. This was the Digital Pros, powered by Fast Turtle, right here on Money Radio.